White.
Thank you, Alaska Hirlig. If my namesake, Senator Mary White, is correct, and I think she is correct, when she says that anybody could have seen that the construction boom would not be sustained, and that anybody could see that there was a necessity to take other measures and to plan for the success and plan for the future of the Irish economy and to promote innovation and to promote the sort of activity that she's talking about. If she's right in that, and I think she is, well then quite clearly I have to say to her through the chair that her colleagues in government are guilty of the most serious dereliction of duty that can possibly be imagined. Because if anybody in their right minds could have seen it, presumably Deputy Manzer and Deputy Lenihan and the Taoiseach are in their right minds. I've no reason to believe that they haven't been in their right minds. And then why did they not see it? Just as Senator Mary White has seen it and the rest of us have seen it over the last number of years. So I think she's right in that, and I think the government has a case to answer. Now, last week in this House, Alaska Hirlig, we had some short debate at the Order of Business and elsewhere about these issues. And we were promised by a number of speakers that there was going to be this fantastic amazing set of announcements to the Dáil and to the Seanad this week, which was going to be visionary and which was going to be forward-looking. That is not, in fact, what we got. What we have, in fact, is a list of cuts. It's no more than that. It's not a vision. It's not a plan. It contains nothing other than a list of cuts. Savings they've been euphemistically referred to as, but they're cuts. They feel it's necessary to do that. They feel it's necessary to take quick action because of what they perceive is an immediate problem in the public finances. But that's what it is. And there's an air of complete unreality for government speakers, Senator McSharry and others, to turn the debate and to seek to say, well, what would the opposition do? Is he asking us for our list of cuts? Is that the level at which he wants to have this debate about the future of the Irish economy? Because I am not going to play that particular game with him or with the Minister or with anybody else. Because what the country needs is not in fact just a sterile list or a list of cutbacks. What the country needs is in fact the vision that we were promised was going to be contained in these announcements this week. And I will not play any part, and my party will not be involved, in congratulating any government or any minister for sitting down with officials and devising a list of cuts when it's the same government failed to act quickly enough and failed to act skillfully enough in order to prevent this state of affairs arising in the first place. So there's no congratulations called for. There's no commending of the government called for at all in this situation. There is, in fact, the most serious criticism that requires to be levelled at their door. Now, the other thing is in relation to, again, the factual matrix, the factual background to this. And again, this point has been made, this is internationally generated. And I know that the Minister is somebody who takes an interest in language and takes an interest, one would hope, and I expect, in the precision of language and what words actually mean. Now, it's for Senator McSharry or Senator Hanafin to point to examples of economic difficulties in other countries is not evidence of cause and effect. But this is first year, the most basic economics. The fact that other countries are going through difficulties does not mean that their difficulties are causing ours. This is a completely spurious correlation. And really you need to look at, the factual basis for what's occurred. Paul Tansey, an independent economic journalist, has soberly and solemnly said and reported, and hasn't been countered in relation to it by any other serious commentator. He said, and I quote Alaska Hirlig, "The recession has not been triggered by the global economic slowdown, or even by the surge in world prices for energy and food. Its origins are closer to home. The recession is the result of a fall in domestic demand," unquote. That is what the commentators, the serious, and as Senator Butterman and others have pointed out, the authors of the ESRI report, anybody who's actually looked at this and analysed it and set out the facts before us, will clearly and fairly say that this is a domestically generated problem, against the background, admittedly, of difficulties on the world stage. Nobody argues with that. Absolutely, that's factually true. But it is not the case to say that one is causing the other. So this is why I asked last week, and I again asked today, for some care and for some precision from people who are actually arguing or trying to suggest, whether it's through the Moody's report or other reports that Senator Hanafin and others managed to find, or Google or wherever they got them, to try to persuade people to pull the wool over our eyes that this is somehow something that we can, that has happened, as if it just was like a rain shower coming down that we couldn't control. We could control it. And Senator Mary White is absolutely right in my submission. Over the years, we have been, the government has been a directly party to over-priming the construction sector, knowingly doing so and deliberately doing so, as being the repository, in its view, it would appear, of the prospects for the economy into the future. Failed to address the sort of issues Senator Mary White has correctly raised here, but set all its store in the construction industry. Incentive after incentive, development after development, whether small or large, whether in city areas or in rural areas, massively over-incentivising the construction sector and failing to use investment, or to direct investment, prudent investment, into the sort of areas that would have in fact yielded a long-term result for the Irish economy. Because again, as I say, and if she won't mind, I again quote Senator Mary White, that anyone in their right minds could see that putting setting all of our store on the construction industry wasn't going to work. And I do criticise Minister McCreevy for many of those incentives that he was responsible for. I do question, I mean, isn't it a stark contrast to Alaska Hirlich, where last week or the week before we were talking about the PPPs and the collapse of the PPP projects in Dublin, where you have this old housing stock requiring urgently to be replaced. You have these PPP projects now collapsing, where people urgently are in need of renewed housing in circumstances where they require the help of the state in order to achieve it. And we have unquestionably, and this is again factually the case, that all over the country, and I wonder, has the Minister done any survey of this, and this might assist us in our deliberations, how many housing units from this great boom are lying idle? Who's in them? Nobody's in them. Isn't it an extraordinary imbalance that we have, where you have these thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of housing units lying idle as part of some, I don't know, perhaps speculative venture at this stage, or uncertainty on the behalf of builders and developers as to what they're going to do with them. And at the same time, we have people crying out for the provision of proper housing and proper accommodation in areas such as those that were supposed to be served by these PPPs. A seriously stark contrast between the reality for some people and that faces others. So certainly we can, and the Irish government can in fact have an impact on these issues. They are in large measure homegrown, and I say to colleagues on the other side who say the opposition should be involved in determining economic policy, or at least being involved in deciding what it might be, by all means, but let's not think that that's just an involvement in a bookkeeping exercise of what's your list of cuts, I can come up with more. If we're going to have a really seriously visionary look at what the country should be, what sort of economic activity is really productive in the long term, and Senator Boyle says the opposition should be involved, don't just look to the opposition across the floor when things are going badly. If there's a serious intent on the government part to involve opposition parties and to listen to opposition parties, let's do that in a real sense in terms of planning for the future, rather than this simply rhetorical flourish at the time when things are going bad, with the shout across the floor, listen guys, you guys need to give us a hand as well. That's not the way it's going to work.